Graham. This is going to be fun today. We'll leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. You can either come off of mute with so many people on the call, maybe type it in the chat box. Tegan and Graham can help me with the questions. But the takeaways from family reunion, I have to say, this was one of the best family reunions I can remember in a long time. And I think it was for two reasons. Gary Keller and Mo Anderson were more present than I've ever seen them. And for me, that was awesome because I love learning from both of them. So today I'm going to take literally 6 steps to doing more that Gary taught at the very beginning of family reunion. And then I'm going to add 6 more things on it. So 4 more to give you your 10 takeaways, and then 2 more bonus things that I think were really important. And there's a lot more that we could talk about. I'm going to tie also to the things that Gary brought up to a couple of our speakers, one being the keynote speaker, Ed Milet. And if you missed Ed, let me tell you, he was a real treat. So I found it fascinating that Gary's outline for family reunion and what he talked about at the CEO Summit, and again at his top agent mastermind on Monday, right before we all left, those key takeaways, he specifically had keynote speakers that spoke to those very things. So let's get started. Super excited. Make sure that I am, there we go. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Thumbs up, 6 steps to doing more. So remember, there's going to be 12, but these 6 steps are the ones that Gary really led off at family reunion with. And the first one, when you say, be positive and see possibilities, Gary reminded us all that this is the infinite game, not the finite game. We have to have an evergreen mindset, meaning one that really, it's our mindset for our career, not our mindset for just 1 year or a change in the market, that we really need to have a positive outlook and see possibilities. The funny thing about possibilities is that everybody sees possibilities initially like a big fat problem. And the only way you see opportunity is that you stay inside of the problem and figure out, what problem are we trying to solve? When you work on really examining the problem and you look at what problem we're actually trying to solve, the funny thing about that, you're going to see opportunities all over the place. And really, you've got 2 different mindsets and you get to choose. One of them is to get smack dab in the middle of the problem, define what problem we're trying to solve, and we'll talk more about that later. And then looking for the opportunities. The other mindset says, I'm going to go to the sidelines and I'm going to stay here because it's safe. And I'm going to wait and see what happens. And then I'll get back in the game. Funny thing about that, when the market moves in real estate, just like in the stock market, when it moves, if you're not in the game, you're going to miss huge rewards. It's kind of like a golf swing. When you start at the top, it's nice and slow. And when you work through this market, what you're looking for is the connection of the club to the head. That's where the magic happens. You've got to be smack dab in the middle of the market, meaning you've got to be fully present. You've got to be in the game. Gary is in the game right now. Mo Anderson is in the game right now. And we are fortunate in Keller Williams that our leaders are in the game as agents, as leaders right there with us, giving us great insight all along the way. Second thing we're going to talk about today is continue to play offense, listen more than ever, live outside of your comfort zones, focus on what you can control, live with certainty in an uncertain time. And that comes from a number of different things. So we just talked about be positive and see the possibilities. Now let's talk about continually playing offense. What's interesting, that means you have to be lead generating all the time. We know that, and yet what we are unrealistic about is our numbers. So there's always a path in the math. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when you continue to play offense, you find your new math and you continue to lead generate and get in front of however many people you need to get in front of in order for you to hit your goal. You also manage your expenses. And I have an interesting theory that a lot of us, our personal lifestyle went up in 20 and 21. And then in 22, it was still going up 15% growth through May. And then there was a waterfall moment for like 6 months where people's income sank to low levels, but their personal living expenses were still here. That's a big gap to make up when the market's falling. So it's not only paying attention to your business expenses, but probably more than ever before, paying attention to your personal creep, meaning the creeping of the expenses that happened in your personal life during probably 20 and 21. The third thing I want you to examine is beyond lead generation and your expenses is also your capacity, meaning, do you have the right people on the right seats in the right bus? Do you need a personal assistant? Maybe you have a large team and maybe you find yourself with an overcapacity. So examine your capacity. The fourth thing is I need you to examine not only your expenses and your capacity and your lead gen, but I need you to look at your systems. Are they efficient? Are they the right systems? I don't know about you guys, but as we grow and change in ebb and flow in the market, sometimes our systems have to change with it. Sometimes some of the things we've had our people working on, and they'll get up every day and they'll work till 3 a.m. to execute on that system, is not a system we need anymore. But the problem is they're too far away from you to know it. And so until someone tells them to stop doing that old thing that doesn't work, they keep doing it. So examine our lead gen, our systems, our expenses, business and personal, and our capacity. So that's when we say continue to play offense. We've got to be doing those things on a consistent basis in order for us to stay ahead of the game and to bridge that gap that happens when the market shifts. It's in between the time that buyers go to the sidelines, sellers don't know what's up until they do again. Number 3, listen more than ever. And one of our speakers, Molly, talked about the fact that she was a sports agent for years, for 20 years. And Molly talked about the fact that she learned a valuable lesson when she had a local college coach who said he wanted to go to the NFL. And she got him that contract. And as soon as he signed it, like a day later, he said, I can't do it. And she said, here's the valuable lesson I learned. I should have said to him, I should have asked him more questions. I should have said, you know, when you go in that locker room of that college and you tell those players that you're going to go to the NFL, can you do that? How will you feel when you do that? And she said, I didn't ask him the question. Since I didn't ask him that question, it was my fault. I didn't listen more than ever. Had I been listening and asked him better questions, we would have never been in that situation. I don't know about you, but I know as a real estate agent, this is my 39th year in real estate. There have been times when I thought I knew the answer and I thought I knew what my clients wanted because maybe a month ago, that's what they told me. But I didn't keep listening and keep asking questions. And so we got to a place that wasn't the right place for them. And they backed out of the contract or they didn't want to list anymore or whatever the case might be. So Gary said, one of the top 6 things that we need to be doing more of this year is listening more than ever. So are you asking questions and listening, or are you making statements for your client? I did a role play with an agent yesterday in Tucson. And at the end of it, he said, oh my gosh, I think you've done this a time or two. And I just smiled. And he said, you never made one statement. You only asked me questions, which helped me get to my answer. So ask great questions and listen more than ever. The number 4 thing that Gary says that we need to be doing more of this year is living outside of our comfort zone. Well, that sounds like a whole lot of fun, right? Yet you need to remember that this can actually be a strategy for you and not a threat. A strategy, living outside your comfort zone. So what that means for me, interestingly enough, it means controlling what I can control and being comfortable in an uncomfortable market. So there are so many things in this market we can't control, but we can control our lead gen. We can control our expenses. We can control our systems. We can control whether or not we ask more great questions and listen. And we can control our capacity, meaning that the people that work with us and what our costs or our investment in people are. Those are all things we get to control. We get to control our systems, our models. We get to control what we're paying attention to, and we get to control our calendars. I guarantee you, if I looked at any one of your calendars, might be blank, that will tell me something. It might be highly scheduled. That will tell me something else. But I can look at your schedule and your calendar, and I can look at your bank account, and I can tell you what you value. If you value doing more this year, then your bank account and your calendar should reflect it. And that means you might have to live outside your comfort zone. You might have to do more than you've done before. And that might be uncomfortable. That might mean you have to rearrange your calendar and your schedule to be able to do what you need to do. Because Molly also said this: who and what deserves your energy? Just like everything on your plate doesn't deserve the same amount of time or attention, you know what? The people you hang around with and what you do doesn't equally deserve your attention either. So if you want more energy this year, determine who in your world deserves more energy and who and what in your world deserves more of your energy. It might mean that you shift, that you stop doing some things you used to do and you start doing other things that are necessary right now. That means you're going to have to look at what problem you're trying to solve before you try to give yourself a prescription for it, diagnose the problem. We'll talk more about that. So be willing to live outside of your comfort zone and focus on what you can control. So in focusing on what we can and can't control, I said this at family reunion. I ended up speaking 7 times in 3 days, and it was exhausting. But what I can share with you is there was a common theme through all of it, and that is this: it's more important for you to have clarity of your vision than it is for you to have certainty of your outcome. What does that mean? You need to know where you're going, and you need to know who you are. If you know who you are and where you're going, the certainty of the outcome isn't as important as your vision for where you're going and for you to get up every day and know who you are and who you're not. So Molly when she talked about that, she linked that back to the fact that once you know who you are, you will know who deserves your energy and who and what deserves your energy, because not all things are equal. And we have to make decisions, just like we do with narrowing our focus on not only our lead gen focus, but also narrowing our focus to who deserves our time. Not everybody deserves it equally. And when you give your time and energy to people who don't deserve it equally, they don't deserve it, it will suck the life out of you. So I want you to be thinking about who deserves your time and energy and what deserves your time and energy. And then focus on the things that you can control. You can't control the interest rates. You can't control what the Fed's going to do or not do. They're going to do whatever they need to do. But you can control your response to it, and you can choose to pivot your business plan to make sure that you can take advantage of whatever it is that they do. Whatever problem they cause for us, we have to get in the middle of that problem, and we have to figure out what the opportunity is. The only way you do that, somebody asked me the other day, they actually asked me when I was on a panel at family reunion, one of the questions they asked me was, what do you do when you're exhausted? What do you do when you're burned out? It's right here, my friends. The way to deal with burnout, anxiety, and exhaustion is to make sure that your calendar is set up in such a way that you're controlling what's most important and that you're highly scheduled. Being highly scheduled makes me feel in control in an out of control world. So the number one thing I did, I got home from family reunion. The next day, I just went on my calendar, did exactly what I normally do, and talked to the people I normally talk to. And I felt very in control in somewhat of an out of control world. So focus on what you can control. Number 6, live with certainty in uncertain times. Know who you are, do what matters most, and make sure you understand who is most important to you. So live with certainty. The best way to live with certainty is to know where you're going, making sure that you create the plan to get there, get it into your calendar, and follow your calendar. And that doesn't mean we don't have to pivot. We work off of a 12-week year because the market's that volatile. And it also allows us to focus on what is most important right now. Whether it's me as an expansionist or whether it's my market centers, it's the same thing. Whatever will work for you as an agent will work for a market center. Whatever works for a market center will work for you as an agent. It's the same conversations. And so I'll have to be fair to you, living with certainty in uncertain times, and this one focusing on what you can control. Do you think that your agents or your team members or your leadership in your market centers, do you think that they can get squirrel? And why do you think they do that? They do that because they don't want to do the one thing that they need to be doing. And for most of them, just like us as agents in the market center, it's lead generation, meaning appointments, getting appointments. So here's what I can say. When we create a business plan, which helps me feel more in control in an uncontrollable world, and we do it for a 12-week year, anytime we came up with a code word, because I got tired of explaining over and over and over, you guys are squirreling. That's not on the business plan for this 12-week year. At the end of the 12-week year, if you want to sit and wonder and put stuff on whiteboards and do all that, awesome. Once we decide our plan, it's execution time. And that means we're not going to get off on tangents and squirrel. So we came up with a code word for that, so that anytime somebody comes to me with an idea and it's not in our business plan, here's what I say. The code word's bananas. So what I say to them is, you know what, Matt, you're driving me bananas. That's a code word for them to go, oh, this must not fit in our business plan. And I came up with it because it was tiring to have to say, Jim, why are you even thinking about that? That's not in our business plan at all. And getting them to narrow their focus by asking them better questions about, yes, is lead generation good? All of it's good. Is there some parts of lead generation that are better today than the market we had a year ago? Yeah, probably. So what are the best ones that have the highest conversion at the lowest cost that we need to be focusing on? It just is a narrowing of everybody's focus. And when they get off on something, it may be lead generation. It may be a great idea, but it's not in our business plan today. I will say, Thomas, you're driving me crazy. You're driving me nuts. So last night, what's interesting, I was on a call with our 20 VAs, and I taught them the very same thing. When one of our agent has a request of you and you know it's not in our business plan, it's okay with me for you to say, Kimberly, you're driving me bananas. This is not in our business plan. Because agents do it, leadership does, all of us do it. And Gary says you've got to go from basic to complexity to get back to simple. And what he's really saying is, don't drive me bananas. It's pretty simple. And we stay in complexity to avoid what we really need to do. So now here's the bonus items. So these are some additional things. So these were the first 6 things that Gary said at the CEO Summit, the 6 steps to doing more. So I'm going to repeat them. Be positive and see possibility. Continually play offense, listen more than ever, live outside of your comfort zone, focus on what you can control, and live with certainty in uncertain times. So here's the bonus ones. And I'm telling all this today, if you like what you're hearing today, and probably a lot of you are not thinking about scaling your business. You're probably thinking, that's the last thing I'm thinking about right now, Kristan, is scaling my business. Well, here's what I can tell you. Gary says coming out of every shift is a massive opportunity to take territory. But if you don't have your foundation set right, it's not going to work. So right now, during this webinar, before the class ends, you get 15% off if you want to take this class. This class is an 8-week class, once a week on a very specific topic on building your foundation. And it's a specific topic on building your foundation disruptively, like disruptive lead generation. How do you disruptively come up with a culture that's so disruptive and cool that it attracts people to you? How do you come up with opportunities and for your agents to have more opportunity that's disruptive enough that they want to go to the distance with you? So if you're interested, it's $299. It starts the end of March. The first class does. And scaleyourbusiness.co is where you can go if you want to sign up. It's 15% discount. Use the code word WEB15. Tegan will remind you in the chat box why I keep sharing with you probably the information you came to discover. So number 7, you have to master your new math. If Gary has said it once, he said it a bazillion times. The path is in the math. And most of us woke up when the markets started to shift in June and we literally had a waterfall 6 months. In Arizona, our market, depending on which city you were in, the volume, the number of sales volume was down anywhere from 35 to 40%. Now, think about that. In the first 6 months, it was up 15%. In the last 6 months, it went down anywhere from 35 to 40%. That's a 55% change in closed sales. That's a waterfall shed. That's a like off the cliff. So you might have to do some new math if you want to close the same number of units you closed in 2021 or 2020. So the math is always, always, always the path. So you've got to master the new math in the new model. So right now, if you have to talk to more people, do you know how many more people you have to talk to? Do you know what your conversion ratio is right now in this market when some buyers are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the interest rate to start with a 5? What we discovered was this. Our lead gen that we were doing in 20 and 21 was no longer going to deliver the same income that we want for 2023. And what we discovered is that we had already pulled some of our buyers and sellers in 20 and 21 into 22, meaning because interest rates had been so low, a lot of the people who would have maybe not bought during that time or sold during that time did, because 75% of everyone who sells will buy. So if we had people selling and buying during that time who normally wouldn't, you're probably taking from your database and you're pulling in clients during those couple of years that probably wouldn't have transacted had the interest rates not gone so low. So your database is probably not going to give you in 2023 what it gave you in 2020 and 2021. And so you might have to go after another new lane of lead generation. You might have to add time to how much time you spend on lead generation. One of those things has to, and your conversion may be a different number than it was in 2020 and 2021. So with accounting for those three things, your math is probably going to change in how many people you need to connect with in order to get the same result that you got. So when you think about the math, that means leads. Has your lead flow changed? Is the conversion from lead to appointments changed? Appointment to contract and contract to closing. You've got to find what your new conversion numbers are and then work it backwards to see how much more time or how many more people you're going to have to connect with in order to get to the same math that you want for your goals or the lifestyle that you have increased to during those years. Your choice is that, or your choice is to cut your expenses, or your choice is for about 390,000 agents to get out of the business, because they project that 24% or 390,000 agents of the 1.6 million will leave the business this year, because if they took the time to do the math, they're unwilling to do what it's going to take in getting in front of more people to connect with, such that they can get the result that they want. So I was on a call with an expansionist early this morning, and I said, have you sat down with your agents individually and gone through the math with them so that they clearly understand if they needed maybe a 15 to 1 conversion in 2021, meaning they needed to talk to 15 people in their database to get one referral or appointment? Do they know how many they have to talk to today? And my guess is it's at least double, if not triple. And so does their calendar allot for the time to do that? So I go back to who you spend your time with and get your energy, and what gets your energy and your time. Your calendar better reflect that math, or you're not going to get where you want to go in 2023. So sitting down and making sure that your people are super clear about that, because if my team, my market centers are no different than yours. There's a lot of people that are sitting there waiting to see if this really is going to continue. They're not engaging, and they've got to be in the game. So you've got to master your new math number. Number 8, you've got to fill the funnel. You've got to fill the funnel with more people than you filled it with before. How are you going to do that? How are you going to fill the top of the funnel? So you're going to have to talk to more people. You're going to have to narrow your lead gen focus on the lead gen that works today. It doesn't matter whether it worked last year. Does it work today? Then you're going to have to get your message right in order to attract those people into your funnel. So You've got to identify timely mofers, as Gary would say, message for immediate response. What is going to be that message for immediate response that you can then get that message out to attract more people into the top of your funnel? You're going to have to increase your effort. You're going to have to lean into strategic partners, and you're going to have to work your database so that you become indispensable. Right now, are you so close to your top clients inside of your database that nobody could get in between them and you? That he's not talking about a robotic connection. He's talking about, are you connecting with people at a level that they wouldn't even think of not doing business with you? So let's think about that. The next one we're going to talk about is mofers. But knowing your numbers, narrowing your focus to the right lead gen source, and getting your message right to attract people into the top of the funnel. Identifying the right mofers, leaning into your strategic partners to have reciprocity with leads, and working your database. So for us, some of that is events, because of, I think you would all agree that if you are face-to-face with people, you will connect with them very differently than if you're connecting with them via email and via text or even via video. So do you have events in your lead gen funnel for this year? They could be micro or macro. Micro events are something you might do with your VIPs every month. Macro events would be something you might do and invite your entire database. But the question is, that's going to be the follow-up and the connectivity that keeps a moat around your business such that nobody else can take your business from you. Because I guarantee you, when you look at the vision slides, you're going to see that 90% of the people would use their agent again, and only 12% of buyers and 29% of sellers did, because we didn't stay connected to them. So you're going to have to find a way to stay sticky. And it's not going to be with a recipe card in the mail. That's not going to work in our market. You're going to have to stay sticky to them in a way which connects them to you. And oftentimes those are one-on-one or in-person events. You don't have to do a lot of them, but that's going to be a huge follow-up piece for you. Can you find a way to leverage those events? Can you find a way to partner with your strategic partners? Can you find a way to help someone pay for those events as well and allow them to be there with you? Number 9, you're going to have to build a mofer. Well, what's a mofer? Message for immediate response. So how do you build a mofer? I talked about this at family reunion too. And what I said was, number 1, you've got to identify what problem you're trying to solve. When I see people try to build mofers, they first haven't even asked their clients what problem they're having. Like somebody says, well, I'll buy when interest rates get lower. They don't follow up and say, well, how low do they need to go in order for you to be a buyer? They don't ask enough questions. So how do you build a mofer? Like, for instance, if you guys remember last year, for sellers, it was, would you be interested in selling if you had a place to go, right? Call me for whatever, X, Y, and Z. So identifying what the real problem is, what problem are you trying to solve? And then looking at how are you going to figure out how to solve that problem? You're going to have to ask more questions of your buyers and sellers in order to do that, in order to solve that problem. You're going to take your solution to that problem and package it in a program. It's a lot easier to sell a program. This is a program that gives you X versus another program that gives you Y. This is a program that if you use it will give you 8, that Mr. Seller, you on average, your home will sell between 8 and 12.4% more money using this program. This is our program. What program do you have? Do you legitimately have a program that can provide additional value? And people say, well, I'm experienced. I have 39 years in the business. Well, that's great. People expect experience. Well, I'm a great negotiator. That's what I'm super good at. Well, guess what? Buyers and sellers expect you to be a great negotiator. Well, I am very attentive. I am one-on-one with the client. They don't have to deal with the team member. It's me all the time. Well, they expect that kind of service. So when I say a disruptive mofer, what do you have in your tool bag that makes you different enough that nobody can take your business and instead it will attract people to you? What is that? And usually you develop a mofer on what problem you're trying to solve. What problem does the buyer have? What problem does the seller have? Write a message around it, create a program around it, Once you've created a program around it, integrate that program into your business, into all aspects of what you do. It's not, and I would say this, it's not necessarily something you do, but it becomes who you are. We're the team that can get you blah, but you got to figure out what the problem is first. Most people don't do that. And they're really, I mean, there's been lots of mofers over the years, right? If I don't sell, if your house doesn't sell in X number of days, I'll buy it from you. There's lots of mofers out there, but call us about our menu of services. Call us about our hassle-free listing. Those are all mofers of the past, but what's a mofer today that will speak to buyers and sellers and cause them to move toward you? And oh, by the way, during that scale class that we teach how do you build a disruptive culture such that your people will never want to leave? How do you build a disruptive lead gen system such that you build a moat around your business and buyers and sellers are going to be devoted to you? How do you build a disruptive admin team and system such that it's so disruptive that people actually refer you to other people? Those are the types of things that we talk about. We talk about what is your value proposition to 4 different groups and how is it disruptive enough to make you different? And then once you have integrated that program into your business, market that program, get the message out, get the people towards you. Building a mofer, and this changes. We ask ourselves every single week, what's the message of the moment? What's the message of the moment? And we build around those messages. Interestingly enough, once you've done it, the market's pretty much the same. So it's kind of like your clothes. If you keep them long enough, they come back in style. So once you've created some of these mofers, the cool thing is they come back in style because sellers markets, and then it's a buyer market, then it's a seller's market. And so once you built some of these mofers, when the market shifts, you can just pull them off the shelf and use them again. That's the beauty of building mofers. Number 10, determine who and what deserves your energy. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I thought that Molly, when she spoke, really hit the nail on the head. And I found her fascinating in that she was very real. She used several different situations to anchor her point. But here's what she said. When it comes to achieving next level success in your life or career, you have to understand that people use excuses as their biggest challenge or frustration. They say, I don't have enough time. I'm overworked. I'm burned out. I'm dealing with constant change. I have no work-life balance. And I'm overwhelmed by the daily grind so much so that I can't be strategic or intentional. And she said, that is all because you have not made a decision about who and what gets your energy and why. She said, if you want to unlock more energy to what matters most, if you want to conquer and overwhelm burnout, if you want to identify and eliminate energy and productivity drainers, meaning people that suck the living life out of you, and you want to retrain control over your life and where your energy goes, you've got to be super focused on what you say yes to and what you say no to, and not be confused about what matters, because everything doesn't matter. And she said, you need to stop making excuses and start taking ownership of your energy. Who gets it? What gets it? And realize it's up to you to choose who and what. I thought it was really, really powerful. Who deserves your energy and what deserves your energy? Bonus, be first. If you haven't not downloaded the vision speech slides, download them. When you go to the end of the slides, it's all about NAR statistics. And here's what it reveals. And it's so true. Being first on a listing appointment, 80% of the time you will get the listing just because you were first. Only because you were first. So if someone calls and wants to list their home, and many realtors think it's smart to go last. That's the dumbest thing on the planet. Be first and get there as quickly as possible before anyone else. Being first is more important than anything else. Also on the buy side, 80% of the buyers said that they typically work with the first agent that they connect with, that they meet with. Being first is a big deal. And Gary said this at the CEO Summit. He said, this is one of the 5 truths that you cannot hack. The key to building a truly big business is to get there first and block out all others and name in a program. So what he means by that, we all been on a listing appointment, say, we've got 5 more agents we want to talk to. And we all know the script about how to chat with them and say, be happy to call them, be happy to let them know you've listed with me, blah, blah. He says, be first, block out all others and name in a program. He likened it to a tree that gets super tall in the forest while all the other little trees stay small. And he said, the first tree got all the sun and the nutrients and then blocked all the nutrients and sun from the other trees. People with the biggest databases and the people that have the best relationship with those people in their databases block out all others. You block them out only when you are not being transactional and you're being a connector. So he said, relationships matter, but being first, block out all others, name it a program. And you do that by getting there first and doing the same thing in your database and doing it in such a way that you block out all the nutrients and all the sun from all the other agents. Sounds hardcore, but you know what? This is called hand-to-hand combat right now when you've got a shifting market, and we have to be willing to be first. It means you got to be present. You've got to know what's going on in the market, and you've got to be willing to be flexible enough to move your calendar around. If somebody wants to list their house on a Monday and you say, I can be there on Friday, I'm sorry, you're going to lose because someone like me is going to be there Monday at 10. So be first. Bonus number 11, and this came from Ed Milet, and he said, you know, I can just say, just because of how many people are on this call right now, do you know that no one has dropped from this call? We have not had anyone. We had 364 people on this call right now. So here's what I know. You guys are the ones. And he talked about the fact that in every family, there is someone that's the one. It's the one that holds the family together. It's the one that's the rock. And it's the same way in real estate. You can look in your market center and you know which ones are the one. You can look on a team and you know which ones are the one. And he said, most people become the one, get this, because you are willing to survive the temporary pain to get to the other side, where you will meet the next version of yourself. Most people are unwilling to survive the temporary pain of doing more than needs to be done, knowing that when they get to the other side, they're going to take a lot of territory, but nobody tells them there's a gap. It doesn't happen immediately. So the question is, are you willing to survive the temporary pain right now of getting up? Because there's one thing different between people who are wildly successful and wildly average. And that is, are they willing to get up every day and do what nobody else is willing to do? Are you willing to survive the temporary pain of what that may do in your schedule, what they may do in your personal life for a short period of time in order for you to not only survive through this market, but thrive on the other side? And you will wake up meeting another version of yourself when you do. And he also said this, many of you are sitting there thinking, I've made too many mistakes. I can't be that person because I've done this or I've done that. And he said, what if your mistakes are the very thing that qualifies you right now to be the one? I love that. I loved how he said that. He said, if you don't know you were born for greatness, you may miss the opportunity to be great. So all those things that ever happened to you will make you a better version of yourself. And he said, and when you've gone through it one time, when difficult times come, is when the real leaders emerge. Not the shiny objects, the people that have no proof that what they're saying is true. But he said, the separator between most people is, are you willing to do one more call, one more visit to your loved one more drive to meet another client, one more forgiveness for someone who's wronged you, one more, special time with somebody that needs help. Are you willing to do one more thing? He says, if you are, chances are you're the one. You're the one. and you're the influence that others need. You're the inspiration that others need in order for them to become a bigger version of themselves. You are the one. So, questions from family reunion, questions about any of these topics? I don't know if people have typed stuff in the chat box, Tegan or Graham, let me know what the questions are, because some of this stuff was probably kind of deep.
I had one question. I'm a pretty, tactical person, I suppose. And I just was curious. We were talking about mofers. And I am doing one this year, but I just was curious how many are recommended to be had, right? We're recommended to have like 3 to 4 lead gen avenues that we can always count on, right? How many mofers would you recommend also having?
In my opinion, find the one that's the right one right now for your market and what your buyers and sellers are saying, and double down on that one. So for us, we have one mofer that we're working off of. Our second piece of lead gen is actually our events, micro and macro, in order to have that connectivity so that nobody can pull them away from us. And then number 3 is, our referrals and our recruiting. So all of them create a funnel. Events create a funnel. Speaking creates a funnel. All those things create a funnel, but usually you're attracting them to a vision, and on a team, you're attracting them to a vision. With buyers and sellers, you want to attract them to a program. Like, for instance, if somebody calls in and says, I just want to know your commission. I just want to know your commission. Well, that's awesome, Madeline. I'm so glad you want to know our commission. You know what's interesting? We have a menu of services and you get to pick. Isn't that fun? Would you like to come in and have us go over our menu of services so you can choose what commission you like to have? That's a mofer. That's call us about our menu of services. Call us about our flexible commissions. Those are mofers, you guys. If people are worried about commissions, I think people are probably worried about other things right now more than commissions. But that's an example of when the market's really hot and a seller, all they want to know is your commission. Do you have a mofer around that to be able to say, well, gosh, Barb, you're in luck because you get to choose. Isn't that going to be fun? Come into our office. Let's go over our menu of services and you pick what commission and what services you want. That's a mofer. So for us, we have a lead gen mofer that we're using right now. And I can tell you at the end of March 31st, we're going to reevaluate our 12-week year. How did we do? And we will determine whether or not that's still the right message to attract buyers and sellers to us. If it is, then we're going to continue to double down on that and then support it with our micro and macro events, support it with our referrals between our KCN expansion teams and our recruiting. Does that help, Madeline?
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great question. Mofers are a great question, you guys. Messages for immediate response. We talk a lot about that in Scale because we try to put mofers around everything. Meaning, do you have a great value proposition that will attract the right agents to your team that's disruptive? That would be a mofer. So we actually have you build 4 of them out. 1 to attract agents to your team, 1 for buyers and sellers, whatever the message of the moment is right then, 1 for attracting leaders to your team, and 1, what's the value of your team to the market center and the market center to you? So we look at it, whether or not you're a market center or an agent, it's creating those disruptive value propositions and mofers such that you build your business. And isn't it a lot more fun when the people coming towards you are coming towards you more than for just a split? Isn't it a lot more fun when buyers and sellers are coming to you more than for just a commission? So if you lay your foundation that way and you learn how to create mofers for sellers and buyers, agents, leaders, market centers, it makes everything a whole lot more clear. And you always start by asking the question, what problem are we trying to solve for that buyer and seller? What problem are we trying to solve for that agent? What problem are we trying to solve for that leader? once you know that, everything else is a lot more easy to design. But those are some of the things that we focus on a lot. It's disruptive value propositions, disruptive mofers. Other questions?
Kristan, how do you market those mofers? How do you send the message to the masses outside of your database?
Great question, Stephanie. I think the most powerful way right now is through video, short videos, less than a minute, and honestly, candid videos. Like if I hadn't got stuck in a traffic jam off of Frank Lloyd Wright this morning, I was going to do a video of me just kind of walking into the office today and talking about something that I heard on Housing Wire. So how you do it is you just are super purposeful about creating video more than anything else. That we all will even watch a video on our phone without the sound on, you know. So, and I wish I could tell you I'm a good at creating the mofers. Our marketing team, our director of marketing, is the one that's good at getting it out to the market, whether. Honestly, Stephanie, I'm not even qualified to tell you how he does that. I'm just the one that has to create the mofer, and he figures out how to get it to the masses. But what he tells me all the time is we need to do more video. So once a quarter, because I don't like to do video, once a quarter, he takes me to an offsite location and we do a whole bunch of videos that he can use all quarter long. And then he encourages me, as does my director of events, to do these little Facebook Lives or these little short videos of, hey, come into the office today. I'm getting another listing. Are you, just short little videos, and probably the more impromptu, the better. But be the expert, know what you're talking about. But good question, Stephanie. Other questions?
Yeah. Hi, Kristan. I have a question about one of the things you said is evaluate your systems and see what isn't working. Can you give me, I'm not good with theory, I'm good with practical examples. Can you give me some examples of, and I'm a solo agent with an admin. What kind of system would have become from the past market and need to be revised?
So I'll give you two examples that come to my mind right away. Most agents today were not agents in the market at 2008. So they don't realize that you could actually take a listing and it not sell for 120 days. Well, do you have a system in place to communicate with your seller for 120 days? I mean, that used to be normal. So do you have a system to remind you to call them and tell them what's going on? Then do you have emails already pre-written to send after you talk to them that reminds them, here's what the market says. When this happens, this, and have visuals for them to see. We have a little phishing piece that we send out with the letter, like it's called, do you understand the market of the moment? And are you understanding what, when the market says this, here's what it means. So do you have that system built? And what I would say is, if you don't, which most of you probably don't, then you probably should take our class and learn how to build it. I'll give you an example of something that happened recently. So I was talking to one of our VAs and she said she was so overwhelmed, and I usually don't get involved in that, but in this case I did. And I said, what are you so overwhelmed with? And she said, well, we're doing all of these apprenticeship programs right now. And I've got like 150 applications for our apprenticeship program to become an agent. And I said, why are you doing that? And she said, well, because we've been doing the apprenticeship program for a long time. And that's what we've been doing to attract agents. And I said, well, we used to do that 2 or 3 years ago, but that is not our focus today. But you know what? Nobody told her. So she kept doing something that we don't need to do anymore because that's not our focus. And until you tell them to stop doing it. And so it could be any system like that. So examining your systems and look at what's going out in writing when we list a property. What's going out when we have a buyer that's on a buyer contract with us? What is going out in any of our systems? Sometimes I read some of them, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so unnecessary today. So you need to examine your systems and just make sure that your messaging and the reason that you're doing something is still valid, because it might not be valid at all. Like, you didn't need a system 2 years ago when you listed a property because it sold in a New York minute. But if all of a sudden the average number of days on the market was 120, you'd need a system to stay in communication with that buyer and seller. Great question. Somebody's not muted. Who else has a question? Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question real quick, and
Sure.
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Derek.
That question is the 12-to-1 ratio in regards to the millionaire real estate agent. I'm just curious, did those numbers change, the ratio?
I don't know that they have changed. We just know that in the market that we have right now, we anecdotally know that we're going to have to talk to more people. Now, Derek, what I can tell you is if you run some micro events, I'll give you an example of one. In August, does anyone remember the most important thing happening with people in August when it comes to costs? Gas prices were through the roof, right? So that's what I mean. Like, you've got to be super intentional about what are you talking about this month. So for all of our agents, they have their list of their 10 VIPs, and they would call them and say, hey, we're giving away a $500 gas card this month. Would you like to be in the drawing? What do you think everybody said? Yes, right? Well, we started that program back in April, and every month it changed depending on what the most important message of the moment that the whole world was paying attention to. And in August, it was gas prices. So we gave away a gas card. When you start that and you're calling your VIPs, Derek, and you're calling them every single month, telling them who won and telling them what the next contest is and asking them, has anything changed in their real estate world, this past year, and you're connecting with them like that. Let me ask you a question, Derek. If you were a consumer and your agent was calling you every month with that kind of information, would you always pick up the phone?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
so much
Pavlov's
value
dog,
there.
right? You are training them to always answer your call. What ended up happening, and it took like 3 or 4 months where we started to see it, is all of a sudden, indirectly through random weird things, they'll say, oh yeah, so-and-so told me to call you to list my house. You'll find that exactly that 12-to-1 ratio will work, Derek, when you're connecting with them at that level. Now, you can't connect with everybody at that level, but you can do a top 50 probably, or even a top 100. Those are what we call micro events. Macro events is what you do it for your entire database. I'll tell you another micro event we did. We just randomly called our VIPs and said, hey, you know what? It's Friday night. I don't know about you. I think it was on a Saturday, actually. But my family could always use a pizza. We're going to deliver a pizza to you tonight. Would you like pepperoni or cheese? And Derek, that costs like $12, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you go to stand in that doorway and hand those people a pizza, what do they usually say?
Thank you.
Come on
I can't
in.
believe it. Mm-hmm.
And they say, come on in. Hey, do you usually? So when we're talking about connecting with people, we're not talking about sending them a recipe card in the mail. We're talking about connecting with them. So that means you've got to make a connection. And when you are face to face with people, I can guarantee you the people in our VIP list always, always, always answer the phone now. And we're getting, you can start to see our referrals, which is our third leg, start to go up. So you be first, you get the listing, you find out where they're going, and you get the referral, and you love on those people and connect with them like no other. You're not going to have a problem getting business in 2023. Now, is there any part of that plan that's super, super difficult? And it's not complex either. We're super clear on what we're doing, and we're running the same play in my market centers. We have a super clear plan of what we're doing to do that one thing in my market centers as well. We're not running some wild plan scattered all over the place. And so when people talk to me, Derek, about anything other than the things that we've talked about today, I say, Derek, you're driving me bananas. That means go away, talk to me about it at the end of the quarter. We're in execution mode right now. So if any of you want to learn how to do more of that, you can register for the class. I think it's in your chat. You can save 15% off the $299, but it's a fun class. I've been a practitioner for 39 years. I'm still in the game. I am creating mofers all the time. I am helping our business create mofers all the time. I'm not out sitting with listing or going out and visiting with sellers or buyers, but I am in the game like I was on 3 calls before we even had this morning with people across the country. I know exactly what's going on in every part of the country. And that's the point of being educated enough to know what the problem is, to create the right mofer that will get you the response that you want. So Tegan, if you will put in the chat box, somebody's looking, there you go. Awesome. You guys have been great. I know we have another promo coming up where I'm going to share more secrets about family reunion. We can probably put that in the chat box too, but you guys are awesome. Just go out and be the one. Be the one that's willing to go through the pain this year to become the new version of yourself. Be strong. Have a great day. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you again on the next MAPS promo.
Thank you, Kristan.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.